Different's great, but being different for the sake of being different, I'm not a big fan of, right? If you just want to be different for the sake
technology
of it.
Technology increased, I would hide behind it.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes.
Because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives you. All right, welcome everybody to the Master Connector Show. I'm Rob Genovesi. So glad you're with us today. We're coming at you every week here on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And we're always bringing to you tips on how to connect, how to be real with people, and how to get your message out there. You know, be the light, be inspiring to other people. Our goal here on the Master Connector Show is to always be bringing people together. And hopefully out of our talks and our conversations, we're going to help you do that. You know, I'm coming at you with my co-host. I'm going to bring up in a second Steve Spiro. And Steve and I met about 27 years ago, two former shy guys who didn't know squat about networking, didn't know anything about connecting or building an audience or anything like that. And our journeys started together, and then they diverged at one point. We came back together a couple of years ago. And Steve launched this show in order to help inspire people to be connectors, you know, be that light and be inspiring for people. But Steve is the master connector. You know, he's got a couple of different black belts. He's got a couple of different degrees and a couple of different disciplines. And this is a guy who came from a place where he was like me. He was shy. He's introverted. We're both introverts, believe it or not. But, you know, we've overcome a lot of that. And through his disciplines in the martial arts and through the business world, he has learned to overcome a lot of that stuff, in addition to some other things, which I'm sure he'll tell you about. But please help me welcome to the Master Connector Show, the Master Connector himself, Mr. Steve Spiro. What's up, Steve?
What's going on, Rob G? Great to have you on here with us. What a blessing you are to the show. And yes, it's just great and amazing, the background that we have. A lot of history there. It's awesome. So, well, what's going on, friends? Steve Spiro, the Master Connector, coming at you live and direct. And you know, today our show is about clear vision for maximum impact. And, you know, Rob just said it, right? I have a background in the martial arts. And, you know, if you watch the typical martial arts kind of stuff, you see breaking boards. And I did my share of that. And in fact, when I was going up for my first degree black belt, the first time, the test I had to take was crazy. But it culminated at the end with having to break boards. And I chose to break 3 1-inch boards kind of together. They weren't separated with air. They were straight on together, and I had to break through those boards. And, you know, it's interesting, right? What I've learned in breaking boards, or it's actually a success principle. You want to aim, number one, you got to focus, right? Because if you're not focused on that right spot, forget it. It's not happening. You're probably going to break your hand. The second thing is you got to follow through. You got to aim past the board, but you got to have that vision on exactly where that spot is, and make sure you hit that target and the board just breaks like butter, right? I'm giving you a little my New Yorker me, right? But you know, a mentor back in the day, and Rob sort of maybe alluded to it. We had the same mentor for quite a few years, and he told me you have to have vision, but then you need to break it down to bite size, to micro goals, and in the dynamic landscaping of personal and professional growth, you know, the power of clear vision cannot be overstated, right? It's something that you gotta definitely have, right? There's a scripture, right? It talks about write down your visions on tablets, and it's important to have that vision. And I like to call it kind of a North Star guiding you, right? I love how, you know, I wrote a mission statement, personal mission statements, and it helps, you know, knowing what you're doing daily. And helping you through the complexities of that journey, right? And you know you have that North Star you could always look to, right? You know, a clear vision not only fuels the passion needed to overcome obstacles, but it makes for a lasting impact, right? And that's what we're going to talk a lot about today, right? Is having that impact. And you know, for me, this show is part of that impact. Writing a book recently, it's part of that impact. It's mentoring people, it's part of the impact. But you know, it's interesting, right? So in a journey towards success, a clear vision acts as the lighthouse, cutting through the fog of uncertainty and illuminating the path to maximum impact, right? And Helen Keller, I got a quote here that I really have heard before. I like it, which is, the only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision, right? So let's keep our eyes on the horizon, for the clarity of our vision lies in the power to shape a future of unparalleled significance, right? So I know it's lofty. We're setting this up lofty. We're going to get a lot more nitty gritty than that, but I'm excited. It's amazing, the conversation we're going to have. So if you would, I'm going to have my man Rob G bring up, our co-host, our guest here rather. But if you're ready, type in hashtag Let's Go. Again, we're in the comments, guys. We're connecting with each other. We're LinkedIn participants, not LinkedIn lurkers. We want you in there connecting with each other. Tell us what city and state you're tuning in from, what country you're from, and we want to know you're here, because again, we only see a number when we jump on here. We don't see how who you are and where you're from, and we don't see that. I know there's the LinkedIn audio, which is great because you could see everybody that's on, but we don't see it unless you're in the comments. So get in the comments. But Rob G, I'll pass it to you, sir.
All right. Thanks, Steve. I'm really excited to have our guest on this week. Patrick Burns Co. was founded in 2016 by Patrick Burns. And since graduating from Indiana University in 2014, he's been in entrepreneurship. Before launching Patrick Burns Co., he worked at 2 technology companies. One was an Uber for lawn care app, and the other was a platform facilitating the relationship between online personal trainers and clients. And through these 2 ventures, he discovered he had a natural talent for digital marketing. So Patrick committed himself to being an absolute expert in the field and created a mission to help B2B companies succeed with their go-to efforts. Over the past 7 years, Patrick has accumulated over 100,000 followers online, generated millions of content views, and produced thousands of leads. Patrick Burns Co., his company, has worked with nearly 100 companies and helped them achieve their revenue goals by generating 6-figure deals with companies like PwC, CVS, Accenture, Honeywell, and State Street. Please help us. Welcome to the show, Mr. Patrick Burns. Hey, Patrick.
Hey there, Rob. Hey, Steve.
Great to have you on the show, Patrick. Great job there, Rob G, bringing up the man himself. It's good to have you on here. But I just want to say, hey, welcome to the Master Connector show. Hopefully I'm saying it right, Danielle Fisher, a name I have not seen before. So hopefully we're connected.
I know Danielle. Hey, Danielle.
All right, well, welcome.
Yeah.
So obviously we know now that we know we're streaming through your LinkedIn now as well. Probably.
There we go.
There you go, Bob Adams. Good to see you, sir. But again, get in the comments. We want you on here. We're participants, not lurkers, right? But we're going to dive right in here. And so I have a few questions here. So number one, I want you to type in hashtag how community, and we're going to get into this. So here's the question for you, Patrick, right? How did you first discover the transformative power of a clear vision in your journey, and what pivotal role has it played in your successes?
A big part of it is when I first started in entrepreneurship. Basically, I was just full of a ton of energy and tenacity, and I would try to do anything and everything, trying to get the business off the ground. And through that, I felt like I was putting in solid effort. I would get great results, but then I would reflect, and a lot of that was wasted effort and time. Like, it really wasn't moving the needle to reach my goals. And once I realized that, I realized that if I have clarity on the strategy, I can get a lot more impact in a lot less time and effort. And just by doing that consistently, I'm going to get way further than I ever could just spreading myself too thin, honestly. It's great to feel busy, but results are what matters most and what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and Rob could attest to this because we know each other a long time. There was a period of time where I was very busy, but not necessarily very productive, right? And there was a lot of, like you said, in the beginning of your career, right? Just sort of like, hair on fire. That's probably why I had very little left, because my hair was on fire a lot. But yeah, just kind of go crazy, but not necessarily getting the kind of results I was looking for. So yeah, having that focus and that vision, and obviously that leads to impact. So I appreciate that perspective. That's awesome. And I want to also welcome here Marion Wyatt. Nice to see you, Marion. Also
Hello,
a name
Marion.
I have not seen. Is that that's your one of your folks?
I got a large audience, so I appreciate everybody that's jumping on.
Yeah, that's
I am a
awesome.
real person, by the way. I know I don't stream very much, but it's great to connect with everybody.
Yeah, well, listen, it's good to have your community joining our community. It's amazing. Yeah, so we're going to move to the next question here. So we want to talk about navigate. So type in hashtag navigate, and we're going to get into the next question here. And so here's the question. In the pursuit of maximum impact, how do you navigate the fine line between complexity and simplicity to ensure your message resonates and drives results?
With it, I believe it kind of does start off complex because you need to do a lot of experimentation, whether that be in marketing or with any venture that you're trying to pursue, because you have to basically test a bunch of things to gather feedback on what performs best. But then once you have those signals, then you have a clear roadmap that you can double down on and stay on that path. So that's huge for me. It's like, yes, in the beginning, it could be overwhelming or a lot of complexity, but in that process, you're gathering a lot of feedback on what works best, get that signal, and then just double down where that signal is.
You know, Steve had in a question, he talked about something that I run into a lot as I build brands for companies, and messaging is a big part of that. So what Steve's talking about, the contrast between how do you navigate the simplicity versus the complexity. Now, how do you what would you recommend that people do in order to create a very clear message for their marketing? Like, what's something they could do?
I mean, they can put a lot of copy down and then they just have to parse through it and prune it and continually prune it. Because honestly, when we run campaigns for clients, the simpler and more concise the message, the better the results are. But you can start with a longer framework, but then you just need to continually refine it. I mean, when I'm doing messaging, for outbound campaigns, it's only like 50 to 70 words. So I'm not writing a novel about that. And I've just clearly, understood the impact and what that person's going to care about most, like what in their self-interest, what are they going to care about? And if I can just hit on that and be very specific on exactly how we can help in that area, then they're going to be interested.
Love that. That's great. Yeah. So to me, it's all about experience, right? I mean, one of the things that I've done is I've learned a lot through experience. I'm not a big study guy. I like to just dive in and do stuff. So let's talk about, Robbie knows, he knows me well too. And I think you could relate to that, Rob, right? I mean, we learned the learning is in the doing a lot of times, but here's the question. So type in hashtag experience community. And again, we appreciate everyone's participation here. It's great having you participate with the show. And if anyone has, hey, Yolanda's in the house. Great to have you here, Yolanda. But if anyone has any questions or comments, please, we don't want to limit you to only putting in these hashtag comments. Okay. You matter to us, okay? But here's the question. Can you share specific instances where simplifying a complex idea or goal enhanced your ability to make a substantial impact, and what lessons can our audience draw from that experience?
Yeah, there's one that's actually really relevant right now that we're actually applying. So basically, this month business slows down, with the holidays and stuff. So I like to use this as a time to develop strategies or just to improve the service delivery or the processes and dial that stuff in so we can really hit the ground running 2024. So for instance, we basically mapped out with a flow chart, like our growth engine, like what's the entire journey for customer acquisition from attention and awareness all the way to a closed deal. Now, by doing that flow chart, you're going to have all these different steps in the process. And by having a visualization of those steps, then you can coordinate stats for each one of those steps, like data that you're trying to hit, and then continually work on those. Optimize. It's basically like an engine. If you just break everything down as an engine into its components and optimize each piece of it, then eventually you're going to just have way more performance holistically, like all together, once it's fine-tuned. So that's a big thing that we're actually going through right now as an exercise, and I can already see a lot of the impact from it.
You know, when you said something I liked what you said there, Patrick, was, you know, you break it down and you visualize each one. Tell us about the visualization thing, because I think while most everybody needs to see something, right, in order to, at least in their mind, like Steve was talking earlier about Helen Keller's quote, you have to see it in your mind first. But what is a person actually looking? What are they visualizing? What are you asking them to see in some of those pieces? What are some examples?
I mean, with us, I'm just visualizing what does a customer go through the entire journey in the process of knowing about our company all the way to, sign the contract. And I'm just breaking down all those different components through the user experience. And then I will put it into an actual chart so I can see each one of those components. And it's not just theory, like in my head of like, oh, I'm actually writing this out into a flow chart. And then I'm optimizing each stage in that chart.
Yeah,
it's a really operational type exercise to do that, to visualize it, break it down, and optimize each stage.
I think that's awesome, because when I started out in business, I kind of did the same thing. Where Steve and I are very similar. For our similarities, Steve is more of the jump in guy. I'm the guy who was making lists in order to prepare to get ready to look at the list to then talk about the steps. And you know what I'm saying? So Steve would take action, and while I was thinking, he was going. So you learn things
that balance. I mean, you definitely have to have the balance. You can't just be all strategy and mapping. So you got to execute, and you got to get feedback from executing.
It is a balance. When I started out, I kind of did what you did. Like, I'm a very visual person. I have a history as a graphic designer before I became a brander. And so when I started, I thought kind of what you thought, which always makes me feel good when, like, an expert like you, who is a pro at what he does, says, here's what you should do. I'm like, okay, I did that. I did put myself in the client's position and say, what are they going to experience here, 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 and here? And what did I need to shore up, or where were the gaps in the experience that I need to close up? So that was perfect.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Very true though. It's interesting, right? One of the things you said, Patrick, you were talking about the customer journey, and that's a huge thing right now, customer journey mapping. And it's interesting, right? They say it's harder to acquire a new customer than keep a current customer happy, or maybe expand a portfolio with the existing customer. So that customer experience is super important today. And, definitely involved in some of that myself, but want to talk about strategies, right? So kind of diving into that a little bit. So type in hashtag strategies. And by the way, while you're doing that, again, I want to welcome Marcus to the show. I know Marcus is
Marcus.
Good to see you again. Marcus has been on the show before, and Danielle says that she's actually saying check out a website. So go check out the website. Hey, listen, it's not shameless plugging, because that's what we want you guys to do. It's the connector show, right? We want that's the connector show. Get in, make connections. Yeah. Bob says great question, Rob. So kudos to you, Rob. And we got a hashtag experience. So here's the question, right? Being methodical, right? Rob was talking about that a little bit, right? Is the key to turning vision into reality. What strategies or frameworks do you employ to ensure a systematic approach in bringing your visionary ideas to fruition?
I mean, you got to have your North Star target. Then you have to assess what resources do you have to even hit that target. You got to keep it real with yourself. Like, I have this amount of resources and I have this amount of constraints. And once you know what your target is and your constraints, then you can lay out a roadmap of what you need to do utilizing those resources to hit that target. And then you just break it down into smaller. It's all about getting wins too and building confidence. Like, you might have a huge North Star goal, but you need to break it down into smaller goals and achievements, because it's going to give you direction, but then it's also going to fuel you to keep pushing forward, because you know that you're making progress with that. So that's key, I think.
Yeah, I heard it said, right? Inch by inch, everything's a cinch. Yard by yard, it's hard. And how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? And those are the kind of, to me, they're cliche expressions, but so true, right? Because a lot of times we look at something and it's just overwhelming. But when you bite it, you break it down into bite size, into micro action points, right? It really helps a lot. But we do want to bring it back to micro, or to macro actually. That's a phrase I only heard more recently in my life. But let's type in hashtag vision community. And again, I appreciate everyone's participation here. But so vision, right? So how do you maintain focus and avoid distractions when you're working towards a clear vision, right? Especially in the world filled with constant information and noise, right? We're dealing with, these amazing devices are awesome, but they're also super distracting, right? And so there's so many things coming at us today, right? And nowadays we see, messaging in the supermarkets, there's screens right by the register. I mean, everything is just like coming at us. How do you maintain focus and avoid distractions?
I mean, you got to look. I basically just look at it's a higher level, which we are being higher level, but looking at life as a race, and it's kind of your race alone. Like, it does not matter what anybody else is doing in their race. Like, unless they're your immediate family or friends, it's going to have zero impact on your life. So there's absolutely no reason to pay attention to it. So the biggest thing to me is just being very internal and reflective of what you're doing and not get caught up in what other people are doing. I mean, I want to support people and I wish them much success, but they aren't paying my bills, or they're not helping. It's like, they're in their own race. Kudos to them, but I have to stay focused on my race.
Man, I got to jump in there for a second. As soon as you said that, Patrick, I was like, yeah, man, that's right. Because, I'm really, when I say I'm an introvert and a shy person, like, I was painful and clueless. I didn't have a lot of skills. Steve will tell you, if you get him on the side, way back when, I had no skills. I was taught as a graphic designer, but I didn't have a lot else to offer. And so I would look at other people who appeared successful, and I would think, oh, I got to do exactly what they do. Even though my goal and my endeavor wasn't the same, I thought, well, I got to do exactly what they do. And it never worked. And when I really came into understanding brand strategy and the strategy behind it, it was what you said. In a way, the way I phrased it was, look, you've got to run your own race. You've got to play by your own rules. In fact, I go so far as to say, look, if you want to be different, if you're endeavoring to do something your way, you can't compare yourself to somebody else and say, well, look what they're doing, because then you try and play their game and you will always lose at their game. So I decided, you know what? I'm not going to try and win at somebody else's game where they set out the rules before me and they said, you have to do business this way. I said, you know what? I'm going to build my own arena. I'm going to make my own playbook. I'm going to write my own plays. I'm going to play my own game, because you know what? When you set your own rules, you can't lose. So all of that you said, that was perfect.
That's huge. That's huge. I love that. That's the quote of the day, in my opinion. When you play when you create your own game, and you can't lose. I love that. That's great. All right, so we're coming down to the wire here as we get towards the tail end of the show. So we always love, great concept, but we want to get into actual tangible action points and advice, right? So community, type in hashtag advice, please. And here's a question, right? So as we're winding down, what advice would you give to aspiring leaders and visionaries? Because that's who's on the show with us here. There's no doubt, if you're on the show, in my opinion, you're an aspiring leader, or you're leaders already, or visionaries. But what kind of advice do we give to them about the importance of being of step-by-step strategic plan in achieving maximum impact? But again, based on your own experiences and successes.
I mean, I would set a 3-year target, because you don't want to make the target too long-term, because it's not as tangible, and things can always change. But you don't want it so short-term that it makes you overwhelmed that you have to execute everything today to make this plan come to fruition. So I would just set a 3-year target. Once you set that, then you're going to break it down into year targets and milestones that you have to achieve. Once you set that, then you can break it down into quarter, targets or objectives that you can achieve. So by doing that, you're breaking it down just steadily with that and make it actually achievable. But it's not so far reaching into the future that you can't see getting there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, good stuff. Well, listen, we appreciate you, Patrick. The show just goes by so quick, right? But highly recommend, community, if you haven't connected with Patrick, connect with him. Patrick, what would you say the best way? And I know Rob has he's going to talk about an offer, but what's the best way to reach them? And I'll pass it to you, Robbie, from here.
You can connect with me on LinkedIn, and then you also could send me an email at hello@patrickburns.co.
Yeah, and Patrick has agreed to get this. I mean, pay attention. This is the part of being active in here where you can really benefit. And Patrick has offered one free go-to-market strategy session to the first viewer who follows Patrick on LinkedIn and emails him, quote, "help my marketing strategy." I'm going to put this in the chat for you. So there's his LinkedIn address and his email. So put in there, connect with him and email him, help my marketing strategy. And the first one who does that will win that free session. So we appreciate that, Patrick, so much for our viewers there.
Yeah, always willing to help.
We're really appreciative. Again, thank you for being on here with us. And again, community, make sure you connect with Patrick. Patrick, Rob's going to drop you in the green room. We'll see you shortly as we end the show here. But again, it's been great having you on here.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Patrick. And, by the way, audience, you want to learn from other people. I heard a long time ago that if you want to learn how to be successful, read the thoughts of successful people. And the best way to do that is through their books. So I'm going to tell you, one of the ways right here, you want to learn how to, if you're introverted, if you're shy, if you, like Steve tells you, he's open about it, dyslexic, bullied, picked on. I mean, come on, an overcomer, right? Read his book, The Tao of a Master Connector. You can pick this up. I'm going to put the information in the chat to pick this up. I highly recommend it because, look, life is about overcoming, right? You are overcoming to become more than who you are today. Be a better version of you tomorrow than you were yesterday or even today. So I'm going to put that in the chat there. Please pick up that book. You no doubt have a lot of more wisdom coming out of it than you were going in.
Appreciate that, Robin, and thank you again for the words about the book. It's a labor of love. So to me, it's my love letter to my Heavenly Father and my love letter to the world out there at large, because I believe it's we have it's a hurting world right now, but we need to definitely be the light. And so again, I want to thank the community. I thank everyone who I haven't met before. We saw on the show today, and Bob, and it's good to see you on. I know Bob, but obviously it's good to see you on the show here today. And looks like let's see, Denise, was great to see you again. By the way, just scrolling through here, I know that Marion is haven't seen her before. Daniel, and I'm probably missing a few people, but appreciate you being on the show here. So remember, next week we're going to have another credible show. We're actually going to be skipping the week between Thanksgiving and New Year's, and so. But we are going to be doing a show next week. I'm sorry. Why am I saying that? That makes no sense. Thanksgiving was already over. But yeah, next week's show, December 13th, it's going to be Building Award-Winning Culture with Mandy Hoskinson. It's going to be an amazing show. So, but anyway, don't forget to tune in. Make sure you're checking it out, promoting it. There's an event link that Rob is going to drop in the chat here. So definitely get to that link. Register for the event so you'll miss it. And yeah, again, let's make sure that we're inspiring somebody. Make sure today, why don't you send 3 messages to somebody, to 3 different people, and just uplift them. Say something nice. Or if you're big into prayer, maybe pray for a few people. Or if you believe in gratitude lists, I do a gratitude list every day, and maybe include some people that you're grateful for or things you're grateful for. The more positive, the more good vibes out there, the better this world will be, right? It's not going to help anybody by speaking about the negative. Let's talk about the good stuff that we have going on. And I believe that the world will be a better place. So appreciate everybody. Excited that you're here with us. Just pumped to have you in our community. And I would just love and appreciate you. And again, you make a difference, and go out there and be the light, and go uplift up somebody. And we're going to hope you liked our new video. Got Rob in here now, so we're excited to show it off again at the end here. Again, God bless, and we'll see you guys next week.
different's great, but being different for the sake of being different, I'm not a big fan of, right? If you just want to be different for the sake
technology
of it. But
increase, I would hide behind it.
And you start to hear some of their challenges, and yes.
Because it speaks to the core of who you are and what drives you forward. Because what makes you different is what drives you.